Hey everyone, Jeff here with the Death Star Human Resources Department newsletter podcast edition. This is the second one of these we're doing. We're going to try to do some more sooner, so make sure you hit that like and subscribe button, and make sure you check out the regular newsletter at deathstarhr.com. I'm joined today by fellow Substack author and friend of mine, JB Minton. JB, welcome
Thank you,
to the Death Star HR podcast.
I appreciate the hospitality. Sorry, I spoke over you there.
Yeah.
I've admired your Substack for quite a while. I read it every week, and thank you for doing what you do.
I appreciate the kind words. I want to start, and I believe you and I are both alumni of Big Ten schools.
Yes,
You are an Ohio State Buckeye.
I am.
I am a Michigan State Spartan, and I think a lot of people think that Spartans and Buckeyes would be enemies, but really we're
We have a
friends.
common enemy.
Exactly. It is very much an enemy of my enemy is my friend sort of thing.
Correct.
So,
Yeah.
as a Big Ten guy, just to deviate for 1 second, what are we going to do about the Indiana Hoosiers being one of the best teams in the country? Like, I don't know how to process this information.
Yeah, I have a rule. I root for Big Ten unless they're playing Ohio State. So
That's fair. That's
you
fair.
know, I find that gets you through a lot of arguments and really heated conversations if you can come in with that attitude. So I root for every Big Ten school as long as they're not playing my sweet Buckeyes.
I have basically the same rule. There is one school that there is an exception for, though.
I understand. I
I
understand.
saw that game last week, when they beat Oregon in Autzen. I've been to Autzen. That is a tough place to play. Your Buckeyes did not do well there last year. My Spartans just got demolished.
Yeah,
And the
that's
Hoosiers of all the teams.
when I went to Europe. I went to a soccer game in Italy, and they had
Mhm.
30,000 people in the stadium, and they were telling me that there's going to be 30,000 people. It's going to be crazy. I'm like, I've been to like 107,000 people.
Right.
You can't understand how many people that is until you're one of them, looking at everybody
Yeah.
going. But I will say that those soccer fans over there were crazy. They were lighting stuff on fire and throwing it at each other. Like, it was definitely not the vibe we get in our Big Ten schools.
Yeah, I think of European soccer as it's like if you took, I don't know, Auburn, Alabama, cranked it up to 11, and put everybody on crystal meth. Like, that's what they're doing over there.
It was wild, buddy. That's good for them. Good for them.
All right. Well, we are here to talk about Star Wars, though. So, first off, where can people find your work?
So I'm exclusively on Substack, jbminton.substack.com. I've been writing there for almost 4 years now, I guess, going on there. And I do a lot of critical analysis and appreciation for commercial art, mostly movies, some films, or I'm sorry, mostly movies, some television shows, and some novels. But I do a lot of consciousness-based assessment of shows. What that means is I don't really talk a lot about the directors or the actors or the writers or the people who make the art. I talk about the art. I really try to focus my writing and my video work on an appreciation of what's on screen and coming through the speakers.
Mm-hmm. And that is something I've mentioned this to you before. Is you're kind of one of the first people I think I found on Substack, or maybe just who I think
Nice.
maybe you messaged me, like outside of like the just Star Wars people. And the one thing I've always taken away from your writing, and I've told you this, is not to focus on like what happens in the movie. I learned this from you and Matthew Freeman on Substack, who's another Star Wars writer that I know we are both fans of. And it's not talk about what's happening on the screen or who made the movie, like you said, or anything like that. It's how do you react to this movie, or how do you react to this book, or whatever. And that is something I've really tried to. Once I saw that from you guys, I thought this is what I need to be doing, because anybody can just I can watch an episode of the Clone Wars and it can go from A to B, and if I just say, Ahsoka landed on a planet, there were clone troopers, they killed some that's not
Absolutely.
interesting to read. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
And what did it for me was going back to read the earliest criticism from like early 1900s
Mhm.
of the critics they had a bunch of movies then. I mean, there was a ton of movies being made and sold in commercial markets. And these writers that came out of Chicago and New York and Los Angeles, that's what they did. There was no ego because there wasn't such a thing as a star back then. It was
Mhm.
just the movie and the story. And so when I read that, I was like, oh, right. We forgot how to do that. Like, at some point, the the celebrity of it all occluded the actual value of the art, and the value of the art is, what does it mean to me as a human being? Like,
Mhm.
and everyone is unique. We're all going to have our own individual fingerprint reaction on this art. I just find it much more interesting to communicate about that and share that on that level.
Well, that's really interesting. That was actually what I was just about to ask you, is kind of where you had picked that up from. So that's kind of how what early movie criticism was.
Yeah, yeah,
Huh.
and I spent many years in the Twin Peaks community.
Hmm.
I've written extensive, over 1 million words about Twin Peaks season 3. So I've that's been a meditation for me for almost 10 years. And what I realized is that approach of just writing what's on screen and coming through the speakers without mentioning David Lynch hardly at
Hmm.
all. That is unique. Like no one else is really doing that. Most people talk about David Lynch and then talk about Twin Peaks through the lens of David.
Right.
And I'm like, he got paid. I'm not interested in his opinion. I want to. This is what it means to me as a person. This is how it changed me. And now I've done that with Star Wars, which that's new to me.
Well, that is a perfect segue there. So before we kind of get into your Star Wars plan, kind of, and I know you wrote about this a little bit, but kind of what are your earliest Star Wars memories, or how did you get into it?
Yeah, I saw Star Wars when it came out at the theater about 2 months after it launched. I was a baby. I was 2 years old. My uncle took me. I swear I remember it now, but I'm sure it's all reconstructed memories. My first legitimate memory of Star Wars is on my birthday when I received a bunch of the toys, and I had a Han Solo figurine, and it was dusk. The sun was setting, and I went out to play with these things under my aunt's big pine tree, and I lost Han Solo. Never found him.
Oh
And
wow.
it was, I'm telling you, this was one of the most traumatic events of my young life. And to this day, I've never owned another Han Solo figurine. Although Han Solo is one of my favorite characters, he was never involved in my playing with the toys because I didn't have him. So I had to he was always off doing something else somewhere. You know what I mean?
There's a picture that's been floating around the internet for a couple years of somebody who had lost a it was an Emperor Palpatine figure.
Oh
Like
wow,
they lost it in their parents' garden or something like that, and they went back 30, 40, however many years later, and ended up finding it.
I love that. That could
And
be a
the
great short story.
and the caption when I first saw it is, well, this is just the plot of Rise of Skywalker.
He came back.
I was
I
like, that's
love
such a
that.
good joke. I wish I thought of that.
Yeah, that's great. And I hope that story is true. I love the. If I could go back and find that, it would be a true joy.
I know. All right. So you have developed a 15-month plan for watching basically all of Star Wars.
Almost all of Star Wars. There's a few things that I didn't include in that.
I was going to say, I was thinking about the only thing I can think off the top of my head that I don't recall seeing is the Resistance cartoon.
The Resistance cartoon. What was the one? And I'm horrible with names of shows that I haven't watched. The one where they went back to the old Republic, and the dude from the Good Place was
The Acolyte.
the Acolyte. So I did not
Yes.
include the Acolyte because frankly, it just doesn't quite fit in with the purpose yet. I'm sure it will at some point. I just haven't figured out where to put it. And I think there was what was the one with the kids? I really enjoyed that one with the little kids.
Skeleton Crew.
So first time in Star Wars that parents were brought in. Star Wars is the story of orphans. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that was truly unique, and I really enjoyed that show. I just haven't figured out where it fits in this program yet.
I enjoyed too. I think I remember writing like this is the first time we've ever seen the suburbs in Star Wars.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, and the news. Like Andor was the first time we saw the news.
Yeah.
That was something. That was a real milestone.
Oh, yeah. I joke too. It's like because with Star Wars, it's like you have Coruscant's the city planet, Endor is the forest planet.
Tatooine, the desert
yeah,
planet.
it's the desert planet. Everything's the same,
Yeah.
and then you basically, the Skeleton Crew is like 1980s suburban Southern California.
So
And
good.
I got such a kick out of it.
So good. Yeah, they learned from Stranger Things what worked, and they
Yes.
replicated it within the Star Wars universe. It was
Yes.
fantastic.
All right. So on your plan, we're gonna kick off. I'm gonna share the screen. We're gonna look at kind of the first phase of it, and I'm gonna
Yep.
hope this works. All right. Can you see that?
Not yet.
Yeah.
There it is. So I see myself. Here we go. Something's happening. There we go. It's up there.
All right. Perfect. So phase one is Solo, Rebels, Andor, Andor, and Rogue One.
Correct. Yeah.
So I'm gonna leave this up for a second. How did you decide like kind of what the order you wanted to do? Because I mean, it would be very easy to just say, oh, we're gonna just go in, or you could either do order of release, you could do order of when everything fits in the timeline, but you kind of Solo's not the first. I don't. Actually, it might be for
It
this.
is the first. No,
Yeah.
and that's that. There's a reason for that. So I've watched it both of the ways that you described.
Hmm.
Right before COVID, we built a theater room in my house. So I had
Oh, cool.
a movie screen in my home. And it's got 9.2 audio. I can go in there and essentially shut all the lights. The lights are matched to the things on the screen. Like I've been wanting a movie theater since I was a kid. And now I have one. So the first thing I did was watch Star Wars. And I watched them in release order,
Okay.
which was a little jumbled because if you had to sit down and make a plan for 40 years of storytelling, it would not have been in the order that it came up. These were commercial reasons,
Right.
right? And obviously the transition from Lucas to Disney was a huge shift. So that I didn't really get a lot of joy out of that watch. And then the second time I went, after a couple years later, I went and watched them in the proper consecutive order. So
Hmm.
episode one, and then you go all the way up through. And at some point, I think it was Empire Strikes Back, I thought, this, really need to change my thinking about this, because as a child, finding out that Darth Vader was Luke's father was a trauma. I mean, that was
Hmm.
a traumatic, and we had to wait 3 years before we figured it out. 5 years almost before we figured it out what happened next. And I thought, if I had to put this out on paper and which way to watch, maybe I would start with Star Wars, go to Empire, and then as soon as you find out about Luke's father, then you dip into the prequels.
Right.
You
Yeah.
have the
Yeah.
context, like you have that horrible trauma of learning that for Luke, and you're like, okay, well, what does that mean? And now you go back and tell the story, and I felt like that shift put Darth Vader and Anakin's story in the proper perspective that it would have the highest narrative impact on the story
Hmm.
when we came back to Return of the Jedi. So like you have to think a long way back when you're watching them in consecutive order about what you learned about Anakin.
Hmm.
Here, the echo is tighter, if that makes sense.
Yes. Yes.
So with that in mind, I was like, well, what's the proper order to watch Star Wars? And I actually started, this was about 2 years ago, I started making a list of the proper order if I were a new parent and I was introducing my 10-year-old son who had never seen Star Wars, or daughter, whoever what order would I present this to them, and so that it would be a maximum narrative impact on them.
Right. Like what's the best way to brainwash my kid into liking what I
Pretty
like?
much. And by the way, I did. So my son is a much bigger Star Wars nerd than I am. He knows the dates. He reads all the comic books. So he's the one I go to when I have questions. I'm not calling ChatGPT. I'm calling my boy.
All right. So you started, and I guess the other question, I mean, this is a big undertaking, and it really kind of feels like it got big, kind of once The Mandalorian hit, because that was kind of, that opened the floodgates, I think, of a lot of the Disney. 'Cause I was thinking about this earlier today, because I did a rewatch of all the movies, including like the Clone Wars movie.
Yep.
It was a few years ago. I actually haven't done this in a while, which is why I was excited when I saw this. And I was like, it took, I don't know, I think I spaced it out over about 2 weeks. And then really the only other thing that I would have had to do is, the Clone Wars, which that takes a while. But now, you add in, 3 seasons of Mando, Ahsoka, Andor, which is that's a hefty series.
Yep.
And I can see why you spaced this out over 15 months.
The essential ask is like 3 hours a week. If you can give
Okay.
3 hours a week, which, it is dedicated time, but it's doable. You could do that on a Sunday afternoon, right?
Right.
I do it a little bit during the week, so I'm so far pretty close to following it. And that's the other thing; it doesn't matter. Watch
Yeah.
at your own pace. Like take as long as you want. The beauty of the Substack part is that the paid subscribers can come and just put their comments in or respond to something that I put in there. And I'm really just trying to treat it as a stream of consciousness where I'm sharing ideas about Star Wars, feelings, emotions with other people, and allowing them to share theirs with me. There's no experts here. It's just all people that are enjoying the art. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So what's I guess after 15 months, we've watched everything. the real sickos who are like, you know what, I'm gonna go off record. I'm gonna watch Resistance anyway, just to see what's
Yeah.
going on there. Like, what kind of is your end goal? Like, what are you hoping people take out of this?
I would love if I could create 10 brand new Star Wars fans, people who never wanted anything to do with Star Wars, because I experienced that with Twin Peaks. I didn't come to Twin Peaks until late in life. And when I wasn't thinking and writing about Twin Peaks, I was thinking about Star Wars. Like it was always kind of a home base. You know what I mean? Star Wars did it right. It's literally a moral universe that we can cast our ideas through, and I don't have to play this game of politics in the modern world. I can like look at it through this lens of Star Wars and all these fictional people and circumstances and situations, and truly drive value out of that to make myself a better person, a more patient person, kinder person, right? But also someone who will stand up for their beliefs.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot to be learned from Star Wars, and I think probably skipping ahead a little bit, but watching Andor recently, you're just like, whew, I don't need to rewatch Andor. I'm just going to turn on the news.
Well, I like Andor because there is an underlying moral value to that extends to the rest of it. And Andor was the thing that did it for me. Like it, you say the Mandalorian, loved it, pure entertainment, absolutely adored it. It didn't make me want to write about Star Wars. When I saw Andor, and just to put in perspective, my favorite movie of all time is Oliver Stone's JFK. I've seen
Okay.
that movie 30 times probably. I'm not a huge conspiracy theorist anymore, but that movie changed the way that I thought, changed the way that I perceived the world. And Andor did that for me for Star Wars. Someone who's watched Star Wars for 40 years, right, almost. And Andor completely forced me to shift my perspective. And I was like, if we can start with this piece of it, the rebellion. What happened to bring the rebellion up and to get those plans into R2D2 so that when they got to Luke, Destiny took over? Like that is why I wanted to start with this section of storytelling in Phase One, because it's so grounded and it's so relevant. You know what I mean?
They actually filmed. Obviously, I live in Dallas. They filmed. I don't know if all of JFK, but they filmed a good chunk of it
Oh,
here
sure.
for
Yeah,
obvious reasons. And
phenomenal.
a lot of the scenes. Oh, actually, no. I think I'm actually getting confused with. They probably filmed some of it here. I was
New
actually thinking
Orleans,
of.
Dallas.
Yeah, I was actually thinking. I was going to say they filmed part of it in kind of my area, but I'm actually thinking of Born on the 4th of July.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, Oliver Stone loves Texas. That's for sure.
Yeah, but they did when they filmed that the Stephen King adaptation, the JFK one.
Oh,
The
11/22/63.
Yeah, they filmed that when I was living here, and oh shoot, the guy who's in it, I'm drawing a name on his blank.
Franco, James
Yeah,
Franco.
James Franco screwed up traffic for me for a few days.
That was a fantastic miniseries. I
It
truly love
was.
that.
It was really good.
Very good.
Anyway,
But back to Star Wars.
yes, back to stuff that's not grounded in reality, but Andor's pretty close. Andor's pretty close. I definitely agree with you though that Andor, it really took Star Wars storytelling and turned it from sci-fi fantasy, because Star Wars is really kind of both, and really turned it into something more. I don't know if relatable is unfortunately probably the right word, but it's more grounded. It feels real, like it's real life adjacent. Like
More
anything
complex.
with anything with Jedi. Like yes, that's fantasy, that's sci-fi, or whatever term you want to use for it. Andor with its there's basically kind of one oblique reference to the Force at the end of season 2,
Yep.
and that's it.
Yeah, that's
And
that's what, that was actually my favorite part about it. That it had no lightsabers in it.
Yeah.
Like, I honestly, there's not a lightsaber in all of Andor, right?
Nope.
Love
The
it.
only thing I was a little surprised, and I don't know if you were as well. I actually thought we might get an appearance from Darth Vader in Andor,
Yeah.
only in the sense of, you have failed me, Dedra, or Imperial flunky or whatever. Just because I think the show had such an emphasis, especially in season 2, about like propaganda,
Oh,
and
yeah.
when they're talking about the Gorman massacre, and you have the Imperial senators like, well, those Gormans had it coming,
Sweet.
and yeah, like I think Vader, is kind of such a potent symbol of the Empire,
Yeah.
and that I was a little surprised he didn't pop up in that
Well,
way.
one
Like
of
I
the
did not.
things I learned from this book behind me that you turned me on to, which
Mm,
is the rise and fall of the Galactic Empire, is they actually talk about that. They say
hmm
that Darth Vader was a mysterious presence, a myth that
Yeah.
people scared each other with in the ISB. The ISB was literally, at that point in time when we meet them, 5 years before BBY, was the biggest, baddest
hmm
institution. They were the ones that brought the stormtroopers in. They were ICE or whatever, like we would call that in our parlance. That it's like the
hmm
shit people you don't want to engage with. That was the ISB. You stay under
hmm
the radar. And then Darth Vader coming up at the end of Rogue One was such a great reveal that we
hmm
all knew was coming. But it was such a great reveal. I remember watching that in the theater, thinking this is one of the greatest war movies I've ever seen. And I
hmm
don't even care that it's Star Wars. Like it just is a war movie, and
hmm
then and at the end just hook right into the Star Wars that we all started with. That's the thing. There's this through line that
hmm
runs through the spiritual and moral story being told at the Jedi level that runs right down to the people on the ground level, like Andor, who
hmm
just had this machine crush them and stood up and said no more. That's it, right? So I find that starting there at the people being crushed, starting with Han Solo
hmm
in Solo, a Star Wars story, which I know a lot of people don't really enjoy that one. I think it is a masterpiece. I've seen that movie probably 8 times, and I have enjoyed it more every time I've watched it. There's almost nothing that I don't like about it.
It's funny you say that because I actually just watched it yesterday and today. I watched about half yesterday, half this morning because before we started talking, and I had the same reaction. It's like every time I've probably watched it. That was probably maybe the fourth time, 3 or 4 times, and I was like, every time I was like, no, this is a good movie. Like it is
Yeah.
enjoyable, and actually that's a perfect segue. So since Solo is the starting point in your system. Um, for anyone who hasn't seen it or anyone watching this who's forgotten, 2018 movie directed by Ron Howard, written by Jonathan Lawrence Kasdan. Lawrence, of course, is one of the co-writers of Empire Strikes Back, largely credited for it. He was one of the co-writers on The Force Awakens. I believe he was a co-writer for Return of the Jedi as well. Um, it had kind of a troubled production. There were, I forget the names of the original directors. They were uh, fired, quit, whatever. However, it went about halfway, 6 months into production. Creative difficulties was the reason given. Lawrence Kasdan was originally going to write it himself, and then when he got tapped to write The Force Awakens, it went to Jonathan, his son. The movie stars, I'm going to probably butcher half the names here. Alden Ehrenreich?
Love
I
it.
know.
Loving
Yeah,
it.
I know I'm saying that wrong. Woody Harrelson, Amelia Clark, Donald Glover, Tandaway Newton, Phoebe Waller-Bridge, and Paul Bettany. That's a stellar cast.
Yeah, I mean,
Like that is,
perfect casting.
yeah,
I didn't know almost any of that stuff you just said.
yeah.
Like that's how much I'm into what's on the screen. So that was all knowledge for me. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, it's one of those. Like you said, it had middling reviews, and my theory at least is it got released. You had The Force Awakens, which everybody enjoys. It might be a warmed over in New Hope, but it's still a lot of fun. It's still a
Yeah,
good movie.
yeah,
You had Rogue One, which is fantastic.
yep.
Then you have The Last Jedi, which I really enjoy,
I love it.
and but you had it. My issue with both The Last Jedi and The Acolyte is there is legitimate criticism of both of them, but any legitimate criticism just gets drowned out by all the bad faith criticism.
Yeah, I
So
think that's exactly right.
so you had The
And
Last Jedi, which
I'm a bad critic because I come to Star Wars and I'm like, entertain me. If you can
yes,
entertain
yes,
me, I have no other expectations other than to be entertained and to expand my knowledge of the Star Wars universe in a compelling way. Those are the only two things I ask, and that
yeah,
makes me a bad critic because I often don't come out with bad things to say. I say that was a good experience. Now
yeah.
it takes a special kind of art to make me say I'm going to write about that. You know what I mean? Like I'm going to put it through my analytical lens, and that's going to be something different. And finally, it happened with Star Wars.
Yeah, no, I kind of feel the same way. It's like if I turn on, a new Star Wars show, I just want to enjoy myself. That's
Yes.
it. That is, and
Yes.
it is tough for me to be critical of it because I don't want to be. Like I want every Star Wars thing to be the best thing I've ever seen. And that
Yes.
is kind of the mindset that I'm going to go into it with. And, sometimes expectations are met, sometimes they're exceeded, sometimes they're not met. But,
Well, here's the
I'm.
thing, like an index fund, when you take all of the movies and shows together,
Mhm,
you get a different kind of value than if you were just looking at individual stocks or assets or
exactly.
whatever that is. And I feel like this program is attempting, it's an index fund of Star Wars, but now it allows us to have an analysis and appreciation that takes place at the highest level of story arcing, which incorporates everything that's out there. And what better way is there to celebrate complex art than to
Mhm.
do to give it that time and that attention?
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely right. Because I think when you're watching it all together, it's like I've gone back and watched. I went back and rewatched The Acolyte, and when
Mm-hmm.
you rewatch it as a whole, you're not waiting to see what happens every week. You're not trying to remember what happened 3 weeks ago. When you can just sit down and watch it as a whole, you're like, oh, I see what they were going for. I see why they did this to set up that.
Yeah.
So I think with your system, the way you're setting things up, I think that's really good. Because if you're thinking about everything with the through line instead of everything, like you said, as one movie or one episode of a TV show,
Right.
you're definitely going to get a lot more out of it.
And I feel like breaking it into phases is also the right way to do it because it lets you kind of aggregate sections of narrative under a
Hmm.
theme or for a purpose, and then you use what you've experienced within that, and it inflects on everything else that you're going to go through. So every piece should impact every other piece by the time we're done.
Yes. So with Solo, since two more facts for you that you may not have
Yeah.
known, there are always rumors of a trilogy, either Solo, Lando, either a Darth Maul, Crimson Dawn, or a Kiara, as the third movie.
Well, it looks like we're getting the Darth Maul show, right?
Yep, we're getting the TV show with the Darth Maul, and then maybe the Donald Glover Lando will happen, maybe it
I hope
won't.
so.
I hope so too, because to me,
That's a
and
great
I,
story. I mean,
yeah,
like I have never read the comic books or whatever the books are that explain Kira and Han Solo's relationship. I understand she was kind of the broker for his carbonite, which is awesome. I mean, I would love
mhm.
to see that part of the story, which has been traditionally hidden, at least cinematically. I would be 100% in for any of those shows or films that they would build in a trilogy, and I know where to
Oh,
put them.
you've already got it slotted.
I do, I
I
do.
mean, and Donald Glover was just so fantastic as
I
Lando.
mean,
I mean,
everything was pitch perfect in Han Solo. It's set
yeah.
as one of the few characters that are actually consistent throughout all three trilogies,
Hmm.
right? Well, actually, Han Solo is not in the first, so that this actually brings him in context. That
Yes.
was what that actually solved that problem. It gave him a beginning, and now we can fill in the in between because before he was just this kind of pirate rogue dude who showed up out of
Hmm.
nowhere, and now to have that kind of backstory and to have it be so influential on the overall story. I mean, this guy's heist literally fueled the beginning of the rebellion. They say that
Yes.
that's not even subtext. They say that
No.
in text dialogue in the movie, right? And so to know that that's the beginning of what we're about to explore in terms of rebellion, the overthrow of the empire, the fall of the empire, the fall of the new republic to whatever becomes the first order, and then that is a whole story, and it
Hmm.
begins with Han Solo trying to prove out for the woman he loves who betrayed him completely, and that betrayal also has an impact on how he behaves towards Leia and how the
Hmm.
whole story unfolds. So, just wonderful, a wonderful place to start, I think.
I mean, a lot of things happen when you're trying to impress a girl.
Truth. Tell the story. How many tragedies did that very act instill?
Right. So I guess so. Speaking of Solo, like I said, I just rewatched it. I thought it was a lot better. It's a better movie than it gets credit for. I think the problem was when you're coming off of, Rogue One and The Last Jedi. I
Yeah.
think probably expectations were pretty high,
Yeah.
and you got you got a Star Wars movie. I mean, that's what it was. And it's fun. It's got action. It's got some funny parts. It's got a little bit of romance if that's what you like, and it's also it's tied to the bigger story, but not so much that you can't enjoy it on its own.
Yeah, it gives you space. It gives
Yeah.
you room for your mind to breathe, and that's why I think it's a great place to start because we're thrown into a very understandable situation with an orphan, abandoned, nothing. He had nothing. They have nothing. They're literally almost dead at the beginning of that movie. Like it's kind of the beginning of Aladdin in some ways. I'm thinking of Rebels. I'm thinking of Rebels, but there was a comparison that I had. I was like, this is very similar to another beginning of a film, but it's Born to Run. That's what I'm doing a lot of Bruce Springsteen researching. Like every story told on Born to Run is basically the beginning of Solo, where a guy and a girl are going to grab their guitar and they're going to roll out of town. So I found that really charming, actually.
I'm surprised nobody then, maybe somebody has on YouTube, cut the opening scene with Born to Run as a soundtrack.
It should be done tomorrow.
It should be done. All right. So kind of we'll skip ahead a little bit. What's kind of on phase? So Solo, and then the next one is Rebels.
Rebels. So we jump about 5 years from the end of Solo. That's like 10 BBY. We jump to 5 BBY, and we got two forks. One of them is going to be Rebels, and the other is going to be Andor. So they're essentially told in the same time frame, leading up to the Battle of the Fall, and then the what was the siege with the dome where they had to open up the little thing.
Oh, on Scarif.
Scarif, that's it. Yeah. So I'm horrible with names, by the way, but we'll get there. And I love that bifurcation and starting with Rebels. Because Rebels is fun. It's like Solo. It's easy to understand. There's an orphan. This is the beginning of Aladdin that I was talking about. It's like the beginning of Aladdin when we first meet. What's his name on Lothal? Totally lost.
Yeah, on Ezra.
Ezra, yeah, and I love all those characters. And then, but what they got away with in terms of storytelling in Rebels, I think most Star Wars fans maybe they just don't appreciate it. But that is some of the best, most complex storytelling in all of Star Wars. So by the end of Rebels, you should have a firm understanding that there are these things called the Jedi, the Mandalorian. So it's setting you up for what's coming in the later phases with a foundational knowledge on who these people were, what they were struggling for, and you understand that the Jedi are a persecuted group of people, and that they maybe once were great because they do some pretty incredible things in Rebels. And so by the end of that, you've got everything you need to know as a foundational knowledge for what's coming when we do meet Luke Skywalker in Phase 2.
You know, I rewatched Rebels either end of last year or earlier this year. You know, time has no meaning anymore.
It's a construct.
Yeah, I walked away from it thinking, like, Rebels is far better than it has any business being. And because, you know, it starts with kind of the typical Dave Filoni orphan story, and then it really gets into like what's going on in the galaxy. It is not a lighthearted story.
It's as complex as Andor is, I would argue.
Yeah.
You know, maybe not quite so overwhelming as Andor is, but the complexity of politics and rebel fighting and the relationships that happen, like the betrayals, the side switching, Darth Maul, like, yes, all of that stuff is there, and it will prepare any viewer, whether they've seen Star Wars before or not, to understand and appreciate what's coming with Phase 2, 3, and 4.
The other thing I like about Rebels is it's a lot tighter than the Clone Wars. Like, I love the Clone Wars series, but, you know, there's definitely some where you're like, yeah, this is a filler episode.
Yep.
On the other hand,
you can tell they learned their lesson from Clone Wars and applied it extremely well.
I always joke, though, the episode of the Clone Wars, and we can talk about this one later, the episode of the Clone Wars where Jar Jar has a girlfriend, like, that episode lives rent-free in my head for reasons I can't even figure out. Like, I don't know what a shrink would say about me for that. Like, that's the one I remember the most, but...
Okay.
I don't know, but that one I always think about.
I'll have to look out for that one. I don't remember it.
Most people don't. They're on some planet, and like I really don't even remember the details of it. I just know, like, the plot line was there's this queen or a princess or something on another planet, another alien, who is kind of in love with Jar Jar.
I mean, I can understand it. He's done some stuff. He's seen some things. You know,
he might secretly be a Sith Lord. People are talking. Many people are
Yes, I've
saying.
seen that theory, and I love it. I think that's great. I welcome all Star Wars theories. I just think
Yeah.
they're wonderful.
It
Um,
it is always fun to go. Like my general rule is never look at Reddit, but it is kind of fun every once in a while go down a Star Wars rabbit hole and just see what people are talking about, because you filter out a lot of the crap. There's a lot of people that have deep knowledge of Star Wars, really insightful takes,
yes,
stuff that I give credit to when I steal it, at least. But
and I want to know those people. That's essentially I'm trying to create a place where they can come and not experience the noise
yeah, yeah,
of ego that's out there. It's about the ideas. It's about the art.
yeah, and that's kind of the one thing I really have enjoyed about the Star Wars community on Substack. At least this is
Yeah,
not a paid promotion. I'm doing this of my own free will,
that's right.
but pretty much everybody on here, they're people who have a pretty good knowledge, and they're people who have something interesting to say, or like an
That's right.
interesting way to look at it. And even the people who are that I might not agree with on, whatever the topic is, they at least are going to make it interesting.
Well, if we can talk about our world through the
Hmm.
lens of a fiction that we both share, you know, that gives us an abstracted layer to let the emotions hit us differently. If that
Hmm.
makes sense. And now, especially in today's age, we need that. We need
Yeah.
that abstracted layer of art to discuss our world, because we can no longer discuss the reality of the world anymore. Hardly. I'm sure you're not, but just to people in general. You know what I mean?
Right. And
So
really, I'd rather talk about Star Wars than reality these days. Might be putting my
absolutely.
head in the sand, but sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do.
I wrote that a couple times in the article or the essay that accompanies this program. It's like it beats talking about the weather or scrolling your phone for angry politics. Like that's killing us, literally.
Yeah.
At least
Yeah.
here we can share some joy and like challenge each other with ideas. And have you thought about this? No, I haven't.
Yeah.
You just expanded my knowledge of Star Wars. Thank you. Right?
Yeah. All right. So back to Solo. And I
Yeah.
know we got both wrap this up
So
in a
we're
few.
at
I
the
know
end
we.
of Rebels, and then Andor is the other part of that
Hmm.
story. It's more of the realism, down and dirty. This is
Yeah.
what people had to endure. Rebels is also that, but it's there's different elements in Rebels. This is pretty much the soldier on the ground, the
Hmm.
politician, and the ISB. The ISB is an organization of terror. And that
Hmm.
surely is something that everyone should have an interest in nowadays. Let me put it that way. Everyone
Yes.
should be very interested in the relationships of Andor and how they play out, and why the gross incompetence and the cruelty exhibited by these institutions upon these people resulted in such rebellions like Saw Gerrera, such
Hmm.
rebellions like what we saw with Mon Mothma, and what was happening in the politics of moving money around to fund all of these little, side projects that our buddy was doing. What was his code name? They called him in the beginning.
Folk
Fulcrum.
Axis.
Axis. Who was Fulcrum?
Yes.
Was that?
Fulcrum was Ahsoka.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That
Now
was her
now I'm
code name in Rebels, and then they uncovered it, right? See, I
yes.
do know some stuff.
Yeah.
Axis, like what a great character, one of the
Yeah.
best characters in Star Wars, I would argue. Badass ship too. That ship is unbelievable. Lightsabers or whatever it was,
That was a cool moment.
amazing. And so by the time you get done with Andor and you roll right into Rogue One, and it is,
Yes.
I did it. It is a seamless roll in. It felt so good to go from Andor into Rogue One. There were a couple things that were misplaced, but I forgive them completely and totally. That rolling right into phase 2 with episode 4 is such a great and joyous transition. At least it was for me, and I hope it will be for anyone following this program.
I have kind of said, I've talked to one of my a Star Wars buddy about this, is I wish Disney would get some of the TV shows in the theaters. Like,
Okay.
how fun would it be to take like a weekend, like a Saturday afternoon, and watch like the last 3 episodes of Andor, Rogue One, and A New Hope? Like,
Yeah.
that would just be a
CBS
fantastic
has proven it
Saturday.
works. They just did
Yeah.
this for Twin Peaks: The Return in LA. They showed all 18 hours of Twin Peaks: The Return, and I'm telling you, that would be a long weekend. A long weekend. I've
Well,
done it, but over weeks. You know what I mean?
I mean, last year or 2 years ago, uh, it was last year, they did all the movies.
Yeah,
Star Wars did, back to back to back to back to back, all the Skywalker movies. They didn't do
yeah.
Solo and they didn't do Rogue One. Um, I thought about doing it. It was up in the suburbs, so I didn't want to go. Our friend Matthew Freeman did do this, and he wrote about it, and it sounds like it's more of a young man's game.
Oh, that's a lot. That's a lot of time to sit in a theater.
I did.
Truly. Now, when
back
they
back.
released Star Trek: The Next Generation on Blu-ray, I don't know if you are you a Star Trek fan too?
Not really. I'll watch it, but it's not my jam.
I'm both, and I love Star Trek: The Next Generation. Well, they released them in the theater, at least here in Columbus, and so
Okay.
we could pay, and we went to saw 2 episodes. They picked the ones. They were the best ones of each season, and it was phenomenal experience watching these on the big screen with a whole audience of people, and the way that some people laughed at weird moments, like it was an experience above and beyond just watching it as an individual in your home, even with the theater room or whatever it is. Like just like watching that in a crowd, it's just not an experience you get very often with serialized dramas on TV meant for small
No,
students.
no. I think it shows too, both Star Trek and Star Wars, like that kind of stuff is almost meant to be experienced with a crowd.
Yeah,
Like when Revenge of the Sith was back in the theaters for May the 4th this year, one of my friends and I went and saw it, and it was great because it was, I don't know, it was probably three-quarters full. You had some people dressed up, and just like, everybody was there to have fun, and it was same, they did the original trilogy at a historic theater near me, and it was, I think that theater seats like 160. It was probably
awesome.
pretty close to full, and
It's great.
they had a host that kind of talked about it, and there were people, and I wish I could have talked to them. There were people who had never seen Star Wars,
Wow.
like. Some people who had like, oh, I've never seen it on the big screen. Okay, that makes sense. Like I can get that,
Seen stuff?
but never seen Star Wars, and it was more than just one. And these were like older people as well. Like
Yeah,
one of them was the host. It was his
the
ten year
host
old
hadn't seen
daughter.
it.
No, the host had seen it, but he
Oh,
was his 10-year-old daughter, or however old she is, 8 to 10, somewhere in that range, had never seen it, and this was like his way of introducing it to her. Yeah,
yeah,
like that's so cool. But I
amazing.
was like, in watching, Revenge of the Sith or watching some of these, I was like, I wish I could go back and watch it for the first time again. You
Yeah.
know?
That's part of why I wanted to do this program. Because if you change your perspective from the beginning, you actually are technically experiencing it. Not maybe it's the first time, but you're experiencing it from a different perspective, which is as good as it's going to get for
Yeah.
those of us that have history with it, right?
That's
Yeah,
just that's actually just what I was going to say, and I think kind of maybe a good point to wrap up is, you follow along with this, you're going to see Star Wars in a new light. I think that's your goal at least.
that's my goal, and a new appreciation. Like I want people to come out of this as Star Wars fans, and not because I'm an expert in it or anything like that, but because I created a welcoming environment for people to share their experience of watching very popular commercial art. If you can understand Star Wars and talk about it, you can talk to anyone in the world almost. You can go anywhere in the world and you're going to find Star Wars fans wherever they are. And if you're respectful and you share it like you're sharing a little piece of your soul, which is what it is, you're going to have friends all over the world. You know what I mean? There are more people that watch Star Wars than go to church or vote.
I mean, I would even say you'll have friends everywhere.
Yes, beyond the Earth as well. I'm a firm believer in aliens, so bring them on, I say.
All right. Well, JB, it was awesome to talk to you. Tell people
Sure
again
was.
where they can find you online and where they can find your 15-month Star Wars plan.
Yeah, jbminton.substack.com. It'll be pinned right to the top. And then feel free to follow, subscribe. And I have your site in there listed as well as Octube80 in there.
Yes.
And if there are other Substacks that focus on Star Wars, I'm always interested in expanding my unconsciousness. Right.
There you go, JB. Love talking to you. This was great. We're definitely gonna do this again
Yeah.
as your project rolls on. I always enjoy reading your stuff. I think you're a phenomenal writer, and I also wish the Buckeyes the best of luck this year because my Spartans are not going anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. We're going to try and do it for you, buddy. Thank you. I appreciate you as well. Thank you.
All right, well, that's it. This is Jeff for the Death Star Human Resources Department newsletter podcast edition. Make sure you like and subscribe. Check us out at deathstarhr.com, and may the force be with you.
Sweet, dude. That was fun.